works, it's going to
(1603), King James I of England is crowned. On his way to London, he is presented with a millenary petition signed by 1,000 clergy who want to purify the church. 1604, Hampton Court Conference. James listens to the Puritans but finally declares, "If this be all they have to say, I shall make them conform themselves, or I will harry them out of the land, or else do worse." 1606, Gainsborough and North Nottinghamshire's leaders separate from the Church of England. The separatists continue to worship in secret. 1610s, Mayflower passenger William Brewster sets up his own printing press and publishes material against the king. Life for the separatists becomes increasingly dangerous, and more extreme measures are considered to secure freedom. 1616, John Smith, explorer, publishes a map of New England, which includes a site called New Plymouth. 1620, negotiations take place between merchant Thomas Weston and the separatists to establish a colony in America. September the 16th, 1620, the Mayflower departs from Plymouth, England, intending to arrive near the Hudson River.
The Mayflower's passengers set sail in September 1620 in search of a new life. From the embers of unrest that began almost 2 decades earlier in Lincolnshire and Nottinghamshire, England, they would go on to fan the flames of a revolution that established modern democracy in the United States of America.
And so is set the scene. Rooted in England's complex history, driven, some might say, by one king's desire to part ways with his wives, with untold consequences for so many lives. Regarded as renegades, some gathered in secret. As separatists continued to worship this way, it became harder for them with each passing day. And when the church and crown enforced power through fear, some sought extreme ways to protect those held dear. Those circumstances in which our pilgrims felt they could not stay is a story we still see repeated today. So why then, when history is littered with the same actions, do some stories spill like refractions of the same light, reflected through generations, while others are forgotten, brushed aside, never to be told again?
The Mayflower set sail on September 16th, 1620. From Plymouth, England, crammed with more passengers than planned. As it set sail into the winter sea, months behind schedule, neither wind nor waves would be kind to the ship.
You are sitting on a boat. The boat is small and cramped. It pitches and yaws in heavy seas. You don't know how long is left on the journey, or if you will even make it.
102 passengers in all, living each day with the rise and fall of angry oceans that threaten the progress of a ship that drifts, unable to raise its sails for fear they'll be torn from the rigging. "66 days to cross the Atlantic. Storm and sea, the frantic motion of a ship at the mercy of the elements."
You are sitting on a boat. The boat is going to a new world, filled, you hope, with opportunity and promise.
Slowly, into view, the sight of what would become a place to call home. Already, though, with a hint of hypocrisy, for the land on which they would settle was not theirs to own.
You are sitting on a boat. You begin to dream of a peaceful future and hear the distant sound of voices.
Others already occupied these lands for 10,000 years or more, cultivated crops with their own hands. The Wampanoag, people of light, exercising their right to live peacefully along the New World's east coast. In 1620, the tribes watched as others broke ground. The sound of voices from oceans apart meet on the wind.
In the name of God, amen. We whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord, King James, by the grace of God of Great Britain, France and Ireland, King, defender of the faith, having undertaken for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith and honour of our king and country a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do by these presents solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one of another covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic.
After being blown heavily off course, the voyagers knew they were going to be unable to settle at their planned destination. Drawn up to provide a legal standing to settle on the land they saw, the Mayflower Compact was signed by 41 men on board. They would deal with issues by voting, establish constitutional law, and rule by majority for the good of the colony.
And as with all history, this is, in part, true. But the whole story is a more complex tale of a colony that would grow, but a peace that would fail.
You are standing in a camp, the middle ground of everywhere, and a turning point to nowhere. Carried on the wind are more voices than you can count. Death and disease hang in the air.
In the first harsh winter, many would die. The Mayflower herself would lie, stranded in a harbour, filled with the frail ghosts of optimism that brought her here. And then came the people of light. The native settlers that lived for generations past offered hope to their new neighbours with food, compassion and advice to better understand the fertile land that surrounds the colony.
You are standing in a camp. More people will come. Each day brings its own struggle.
This initial peace, filled with humanity, an example to all. But as more settlers came, bodies would fall. And while history asks who was right or wrong, this story should be more uplifting if it told of different peoples who learned to get along.
You are standing in a camp. Where from here?
With 400 years past, does the time give us the wisdom not to repeat the same mistakes that leave blood at our feet?
For every new person and every new idea, space must be given to allow the journey to carry us to new destinations. It is working against the tide that stops societies from swimming forward.
The ebb and flow of the water is what allows the ship to sail. It is both the ebb and the flow that allows the human spirit to prevail.
So why then, when history is littered with the same actions, do some stories spill like refractions of the same light reflected through generations, while others are forgotten, brushed aside, never to be told again?
Article 14. If we are at risk of harm, we have the right to go to another country to seek protection. Article 20. We should all have the right to form groups and organize peaceful meetings. Nobody should be forced to belong to a group if they don't want to. Article 28. We all have the right to live in a peaceful and orderly society, so that these rights and freedoms can be protected, and these rights can be enjoyed in all other countries around the world.